cannot change the resolution. I tried before. It's blocked. I have the feeling the projector cannot support higher resolution. So maybe in the break we bring the other projector from upstairs. Because there's an HDMI projector upstairs that has much higher resolution. Yeah, nothing changes. Yeah, it's fine. I can deal for the until the break. I can deal. It's okay. So on the right side, it always looks different. For every tool, it looks different because tools do different things, and whatever the tool is doing, you can give the options to the tool here. And at the very bottom, and I'm not sure I can get to the bottom now. Maybe if I make it small. See? Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, there we go. At the bottom, this is also the same for every last tool. And I think I'll explain it a little later because on this small screen it's a bit difficult. However, the most important part I can explain right now. To load a file, you use the browse rollout. It's a rollout display. You click on it once, it should roll downwards. And then you see whichever files are listed here that are ending in file names that this tool can understand. This is actually the directory contents you see here from the bin folder. You maybe noticed in the bin folder there were 4 directories. These 3 are usually not there. These are just there because that's training data we're going to use after the coffee break to do, to get our hands dirty a little bit with doing LiDAR processing. And this is part of LAStools. This is a blast extension of LAStools. So in order to go up one directory, and I told you my GUIs suck because that's not usually how it goes. You need to go on this slash point. See where it says slash point, and you click it twice. Click, like double click, and then you go up one directory. Very simple. And I told you before there's this data directory that has some small examples, and these small examples is what I want to look for right now. So I go into the data directory again by double clicking. And Charm is in the background, and she is making sure, she's reporting back to me through a live little audio link, whether you all follow these instructions. That's why she's standing in the back. And now we can load any of these files. We should load only one because they don't belong to each other. They're completely different files. One is like in Australia, one is in Toronto, one is in, I don't know where it is. So let's just load one. This one here, the first one, is called FUSA. And you double click it. FUSA does not mean what you think it means. Also, I'm not a huge fan of the USA. This means, what do you think it means? It means Flinders University of Southern Australia. Right? Obvious. Because that's where the data is from. It's from Australia, from Flinders University, which is in Adelaide. And Adelaide is a town in South Australia. So when you double click that, the file shows up here. And that means it's now loaded, or not really loaded yet, but it's now part of the workspace. And I can now, what I can do now, I can close this again by clicking it again. It's sometimes useful to, once you're done, to close these again. Yeah, so I can't get down yet, but you can read more. So let me check with my assistant. Blue box, green box. Yeah. So everybody should now have a green or blue box, depending on your color perception, on their screen. And you're like, that is LiDAR? That's not how we thought it looks like. This is just the bounding box. these GUIs, they are like the control center so there could be like 500 of these boxes. And then you wouldn't want to load all of them because that would take a long time, but it would give you a nice overview of where you are. So it's a bounding box, and this bounding box, you can read, for example, what I can still read is, this file has 277,000 points in it that I can read. If you read a bit more down, you can see, probably you can read the x min, the min and max of the extent, the bounding box. And you can probably, if you look at it carefully, you realize this is 250 meters by 250 meters with some really big numbers because it's in UTM coordinates. If you look really down, I think it should say projection UTM 55 maybe? 54? 54 southern hemisphere, because Australia is on the southern hemisphere. Yeah. But now, okay, you gotta think, well, show me the LiDAR points. Where are they? Well, here is a view button. And actually this view button is part of all LAStools. And if you press this, then something magic will happen. No, I was kidding. Something really boring happens. Another box opens. And I told you before, my GUIs may be crappy, but they serve an important purpose. They teach you the command line. And that's what happened at this moment. This is a command line that is called in order to start the viewer. And every time you use the GUI, you will see that. And later there will be more things following here, all the options. And you will see the options every time. And if you want it or not, it's going to enter your brain, you're going to dream about it. And one day, writing these batch scripts will be easy. Or what you can do, and what I will maybe have to do, because I have such a small monitor, so I have to do that now. You don't have to do that. Let's just me do it. I can make the window smaller by saying 1000 by 700. So now I was just doing command line programming in a very, very easy way. I happen to know, because I read the README file, then minus win, and then two numbers specifies the size of the window that's going to open in pixels. So I'm going to make a window that's 1000 by 700. And I think the default is 1200 by 800 or so. And when you're happy with your command line, then you press start, and that's still made it too big. Right, let me make it even smaller. This is a really small one. Maybe there's a minimum size on it. Just too small now. Okay. So you should see something like this. Now we see the LiDAR points. This is a LiDAR point cloud that has already been classified. The colors you see are completely arbitrary. I chose them to mean certain things. Brown means the points have been classified to be ground points. Orange means they have been classified to mean buildings. And green, well, obviously, they are vegetation points. This requires some work to classify the points. That's probably the holy grail of LiDAR processing, is to classify those correctly and then use these classification to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. Does anybody not see that on their own screen? Okay, I'll trust you. Okay, there we go. There are a whole bunch of options in this little viewer. Now this little viewer is really just something I hacked together when I started, but it has a lot of little neat tricks. If you right click, can't right click. Oh, there I go. I can right click. So if you right click, then you see a menu pop up, and this menu allows you many different options. For example, here, color by. I can color by different options. Color by. Right now we are coloring by classification because the points are already classified. Later on you will get points that are not classified and you will make the classification. That's actually going to be a main part of this course. You can classify by different things, by elevation, by intensity and so on. So let's just look at some of them. Let's classify by elevation. And well, then you just, if you look at from the side, you just see that the points that are low are black, and then the points that are high are white, and in between it goes through red and yellow. If you want to change the coloring, you don't always have to use the menu, because as you notice, there are some letters that are in brackets, and those are hotkeys. The hotkeys, they save you from right-clicking, and you can directly do things. And the coloring mode of the points is by pressing C. You can iterate through all the possible colorings that there are. So it's just going to always go to the next one in the menu. So that's the second elevation coloring. I just press C one more time. It's also an elevation coloring, but now I go from blue to red. If I press C one more time, I see a very interesting coloring. And we're going to go back to this a little later. Actually, let's do it right now. This is a coloring that tells you about the returns. I told you before, the laser shoots, and it can hit more than one thing and reflect back to the plane so that a laser point or a LiDAR return is generated. What you see here color-coded is in yellow is all the times the laser produced only one return. And usually it produces only one return if it hits a hard surface. And there are many possible hard surfaces. A road is a hard surface. A roof is a hard surface. The top of a car is a hard surface. An open field is a hard surface. An open field with some grass is often a hard surface, but sometimes the grass makes it that there's a second return. Maybe if the grass is high, so a field of shrubbery. So that's yellow. Yellow is a single returns. What about the other colors? Well, the other colors is when you have multiple returns. Chris briefly mentioned multiple returns. When do you have multiple returns? Well, if you rotate it, you can already sort of get an idea when you have multiple returns. You can also turn off, let's turn off the single, let's only look at the multiple returns. And you can do this by render only. If you right click, the menu pops up, you go to render only, and then you pick only multiple. Now this one doesn't have a hotkey because you don't use it so often. Only multiple, and suddenly you only see the points that have multiple returns. All the open fields are gone, all the roofs are gone, most of, yeah. But what you see here is an area like this. Lots of multiple returns. Anybody, any idea what could be on the ground here? Well, I mean, what's in this area? Trees, vegetation, shrubbery, because that's when the LiDAR produces multiple returns. And it's easy to sort of tell because it's like nature grows, so in all directions. And, however, it's not everywhere like this. There are some, especially if you rotate it around, you see some clearly man-made things some straight lines. Why do you have straight lines there? Roofs. But how do we get a multiple return from a roof? Isn't that a hard surface? Roof edge. I told you the laser beam is about this big when it hits the ground. So imagine this being the roof edge, yeah? And the laser hits it like this. Then half the laser gets stopped right here. It reflects back up. The other half of the laser travels on and reflects on the ground. So in this case, you get two returns, and that's what you basically see along all the discontinuities in the roof line. It doesn't have to happen. It doesn't happen for every shot, but it frequently happens. And the denser the more dense you shoot, the more pulses you shoot down, the more often this will happen. There's another place where this happens. And by the way, if you press Shift, if you hold down Shift, you can translate. If you hold down Control, you can zoom. And if you hold down Alt, then you pan. What about this here? Is that a roof? And even there's some green returns. Green means actually it's not the first hit, it's not the last hit, it's an intermediate hit. So we have at least 3 returns. This is number 2 of 3, or number 3 or 4, for example. These are all green. So in this case, it's not a roof, it's way too high, and there's no building there. What else is long and in a city? Power lines and telephone lines. And in Manila, I'm sure you have a lot of those. So it's only a wire this thick, but it still gives you a return. And of course, the laser definitely will not be blocked by a power line. You have to have really big power lines, like this, for that to happen. There are 2 hotkeys that are interesting to use interactively right now. If you are in this, and remember, if you see something else, just go through with C, 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 C until you come back to this display. You want to see all points again, press A. A like all points. You want to see the first return only the first, press F. F like first. First. First returns are all the red points and all the yellow points. The yellow points, remember, are single returns, and by definition, a single return is also a first return. If you press L, guess what's going to happen? Last returns. These are the blue ones. And if you go back and forth, FL, 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 then you basically see how the laser is penetrating from the first return to the last return. Sort of almost like an animation. I mean, it's not really clear which first return and which last return belong together, because you don't see that here. But it's quite intuitive to see how the laser is penetrating the vegetation, especially in the areas where you have vegetation, and also along the buildings. How the first return hits the top of the building, and then the last return hits something closer to the ground. So I think the first session was supposed to be 1 hour, right? And then we're supposed to have a break. Are we still on that schedule? Okay, so before you go out now and drink coffee, I want to teach you one more trick. You can press X, and when you press X, you get an area where you can select a cross section. So you can now go in here and select a cross section. Oh, and this looks really messed up for me, because I don't know. Oh yeah. I can select a cross section like this, and if I then press X again, I only see that cross section. And remember, with C you can change the mode. And you find, oh, my points are kind of small now. You can press the equal sign to make them bigger. And the minus sign right next to it makes it smaller again. So plus, it almost looks, it's a plus and the equal sign. So equal makes it bigger, minus makes them smaller. And you can now walk through your LiDAR. You can just use the arrow keys to start walking. And you can explore your LiDAR data this way. And with X you can go back, and you can see how you're walking also here. You can walk with the arrow key here as well. So for example, I'm now picking this one house here, and I say X, and now I have this one house right here. All right, we're gonna start right back here. There was a whole lot of information I unloaded on you, and I promise you, it's only gonna get worse. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I just. Okay. So these have to get a different computer. The resolution is so small.